Game 1 is behind us officially. The Cleveland Guardians start this series being down 0-1 to the New York Yankees. I'm T.J. Zuppe. That's Zack Meisel. As you can see, he's on the scene. He's in the press box. He can't make the sound above what you might hear as a mouse or maybe just a large rat in New York in that press box. You got to be quiet. You don't want to disrupt anybody.
Sorry.
With your takes, I'm sure they'll be red hot fire. I just can't wait to hear what you have to say after Game 1. And Guardians here drop Game 1 5-2 to New York. Zach, just sort of start things off on a more fun note. If this is fun, I don't know if this is fun. Is hatred fun? But every time, before you play the Yankees, you go, are they that bad? The New York Yankees, who cares, right? All it takes is like 3 innings into the game, and I'm like, God, I hate this team. I hate the city. I hate everything. Because they're just the evil empire, right? And it doesn't take long to get reminded. And maybe in this case, it's when Soto launched a solo home run and New York was off to the races.
He's so good. You got any text threads with buddies who just live and die with every pitch, and they're texting about every pitch? I've got one in particular where the 2 buddies, they're brothers, and they live in New York, and they're diehard Cleveland sports fans, and it's my one friend in particular is just relentless, right? And it's every sporting event, and this has been going on for years and years and years. Well, I met up with them tonight in, I think, like the 7th inning, and then I'm getting that face-to-face. It's like the text thread has come to life, and it's, why Cantillo? Why not? So I was like, I understand, I agree with you, but who did you want? Sobrowski. Why didn't you go to Sobrowski? I was like, can you imagine saying that a month ago? What a sentence. But it was just funny how...
Wow, you've been reading my show notes here.
It was one of those text threads I feel like everybody's in, that reach their peak in a playoff scenario, no matter the sport. And it just came to life. And as we're standing there, Stanton hits one out off of Sobrowski, and I just laughed. Nothing was going to work in Game 1, I guess.
We don't know that. We don't know. And it doesn't mean that you still have to make the right call. Whether or not it works,
sure,
that's dictated by the players. And I want to make one thing clear. We're going to talk about some of the moves that Vogt made in this game that I personally disagree with. I'm interested to hear what your thought process is, and also just kind of what the team is saying about some of the moves, made or not made, or just the order in which they were made. The team didn't lose because of some managerial choices today. However, there were some things that I thought were curious, and we could start there if you want to. The fact that Cobb starts this game, apparently he's still dealing with some hip issues himself, so I'm not sure how quickly the team knew they might have to be going to the bullpen here.
Sorry to interrupt, but literally as I say that, the text thread is still going, and someone just said something about Josh Naylor, so carry on.
Okay, well, those actually come from my mother. That's where my text, the reactions usually come from my mom. So Cobb starts the game. Apparently he's not, we kind of know he's not even at 100% anyway, but maybe they sort of baked into this. They thought there might need to be a quick hook here. You mentioned the Cantillo move, and that one didn't make a lot of sense to me. Not that you had to pitch him, but where they brought him in that situation, the inning was already getting a little bit wild and crazy. In the walks, too, that department was already starting to rear its ugly head. I thought that's not a good situation for Cantillo.
No.
Young pitcher, you're already dealing with a team that is showing an ability to lay off close pitches, and it seemed like the game plan early was whatever you can hit, take back up the middle off of Cobb, and anything else, spit on it. They had a great game plan, and they executed perfectly in the early innings. A guy like Cantillo, not only is he young, but he also deals with command issues in the past. That's been a thing that's held him back in the minor leagues. I just didn't think this was a good situation for him. Now, you want to bring him in after the mess has been cleaned up next inning? I can listen to that. But I really didn't like this, and I think Sobrowski actually would have been a better fit in that inning because he's used to coming in to clean up a mess compared to where Cantillo's that's not him. That's not what you ask him to do.
A couple things here, and I in general, I agree with you. You know, the trainers came out to check on Cobb 2 batters into that inning. So it was the home run, then a walk to Judge. Then the trainers come out. Yeah, he said he's some hip tendonitis flares up every so often, stemming from the surgery he had on his hip, which was like a year ago about. And then he was getting some back spasms. So this dude seems like a mess, or just seems like every 37-year-old. But not all of us have to try to pitch through it. They wanted to see if he could go a couple more hitters, and obviously he did that, but not without walking the bases loaded. So Cantillo was warming up as he's trying to get those next couple guys out. You know, the one thing, and Vogt did this sometimes, Terry Francona always did it, was you save your long man for a little bit later, because it's almost an admission of defeat. And you want to bring in some sort of stopper. Not, you know, that's not the spot for Cade Smith, but it's maybe Zabrowski, maybe it's even Avila, or Eli Morgan. But the toughest part is you're warming up Cantillo. And was anybody else warming up at that time? I didn't think so. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but potentially. I'm not sure.
Okay. Because it's just, you know, if they could script this, I don't think they're saying, let's wait till the bases are loaded to bring in Cantillo. But the way it played out with Cobb walking 3 and getting 2 outs, and next thing you know, you've got a couple lefties coming up. I'm not saying Cantillo was a good choice, but it made sense why they pulled the trigger there. But if you would have had Zabrowski warming up, he would have made more sense.
And if the point here is you didn't know it was going to get to a bases-loaded situation with a pair of lefties, and it just worked out that Cantillo was a lefty, okay, like, I don't really care who's the guy that comes out, but not Cantillo. I think that's a very poor fit.
But that's the thing, is why is he warming there? Why not warm Zabrowski and
anybody,
Eli?
Literally anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me just didn't make a lot of sense, and things just got chaotic from there because you have wild pitch after wild pitch, and Bo Naylor's having a rough time behind the plate. We can talk more about that coming up in a minute, but just everything snowballs in Yankee Stadium, playoff atmosphere, crowd going crazy. Cantillo's already been part of this before against New York, and it didn't go out so well in that outing. Now, he's grown up since that moment. I think he's a better pitcher since that moment. But we know he has bouts of wildness. It just doesn't seem like a great situation. You want to bring him in next inning in the 4th after you've cleaned up that mess and try to get some length from him then. That's the appropriate time to go after him. But I just don't think letting him be the guy that cleans up the mess, that just wasn't smart. And you know, we now have the benefit of seeing how the rest of the game played out. It actually proved to be pretty critical that those runs scored because Cleveland did make it close late, and you had the rest of these bullpen arms. Avila coming out, that job he did coming out of the bullpen was absolutely fantastic. And I know Zabrowski did end up giving up the home run to Stanton, but he was still part of just helping everything settle down a little bit. I don't know. I just can't make that make sense. There are times where, like, we talk about this all the time. The manager might make a decision that I wouldn't make, but I still understand the thought process. It would not have been what I would have done, but it makes sense. This one just didn't make sense, and I obviously wouldn't have done it either.
Sure. It's also, let's not absolve Cobb and Cantillo of blame here. I mean, Cobb didn't pitch well enough. And if that's just, I think it's easy to just blame it on the injury. Injuries, it'll be interesting to see what happens from here.
Well, how do you trust him? How do you trust him?
It's tough. I mean, if regular season, I think he made 3 starts combining for like 16 innings, and now in the playoffs, 2 starts for 5 2/3. It's not a great return on investment here, and it's tough because I think he feels terrible about it. He wants to deliver here. and make good on the trade. Like he feels like Cobb did not want to be traded at the deadline, and then he started looking into the Cleveland situation, and he realized there were some familiar faces in Albernaz and Vogt and Matthew Boyd, and he was finally on board, convinced it was a good thing, and injuries have completely derailed this, and I think he's been taking it pretty hard. So, yeah, I don't know where this goes for him, but they needed more than 2 2/3. The one silver lining here is Pedro Avila goes 2 2/3 scoreless in relief, and that spares Stephen Vogt from having to use the core 4 relievers, gives them an extra day, and now you can turn to those guys in Game 2 with an off day in Game 3. But, yeah, I mean, Cantillo, he also came back with a clean inning there in the 4th and still had nothing. So, just a tough night, and, you hope it's a learning experience.
Well, it's so different from a 5-game series, too, because we talk about everything being a sprint there in that 5-game series.
Yeah.
And not that this stuff doesn't matter in Game 1, but you almost have to then retrain yourself coming back from a 7-game series. Just look at what happened in the Dodgers-Mets series. Dodgers come roaring out. They take this great lead. They get this Game 1. They look like they have all the momentum. The Mets come right back. Francisco Lindor puts a halt to that quickly by hitting a leadoff bomb. Mets come back and take Game 2. And now it's what happened in Game 1 doesn't matter. It doesn't. And now what happens in Game 2, the minute Game 3 begins, also doesn't matter. The most important thing of a 7-game series, we often say, for that team that starts on the road, you just got to get one of them. Now, it's going to be a tough task, and I don't mean to move on because there's plenty still to talk about in this game. But still, you can accomplish what you want in a 7-game series. It's a little different than the way you would have felt or did feel after Cleveland fell behind in that Detroit series, where you only need to get 3 to move on.
Yeah. It's a tough team to beat. I don't want to say they needed to get Game 1, but I just feel like, have you ever seen this team hit Garrett Cole?
Very rarely.
And I just think the way it's just tough after the series they had, because you didn't need your elite bullpen pieces in Game 1, but you have them available for Game 2, but you also have Tanner Bybee in Game 2. You would have been better off if, if you get a 2-0 lead in Game 1, can have a quick hook with Cobb, go to Cade Smith. But it's also beneficial that those guys had today off after how much they pitched in the first series. So,
yeah,
I don't know. It's that some of the timing just doesn't quite work out here.
Well, what I actually mean is you can take some positives. Unlike in that 5-game series, it felt like if you lost the game, which we harped on that 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, there was no
no moral
traffic
victory.
and exactly.
No silver lining. Yeah.
Early in a 7-game series, I won't say that there are moral victories because there's still not. But there's still a shade of a bit more moral victories. In this case, Rodon.
Seeing their closer for 5 outs.
Yeah. Yes. Rodon, the end of his outing, they finally was having better at-bats. Rocchio hits the bomb. Quan drives it through the infield.
Jose hit one to the wall that I thought he hit on the screws. 2
of them for him. And so, he had 25 whiffs in this game, the most by the Yankees, by a Yankee playoff pitcher, I think. Was the stat. The top 3. Also, Tanaka came against Cleveland, and Garrett Cole came against Cleveland, 2017 and 2020. So three of the top wins for the Yankees coming against Cleveland, just whiffs, swing and misses in the game. But by the end of that, you have to remember you're going to see him again. So I'm at least encouraged that the team doesn't feel like they just got taken to the wood chipper by this guy, that they finally were able to, by the end of the outing, feel like they were taking some better swings and getting, I don't know, at least putting up a little bit of a threat here. That doesn't make me feel great, but it at least is something the team can take away from that at the end of his outing.
I thought the Yankees' approach was great. This is what they do. They draw a lot of walks. They're patient. They force you to come into the strike zone, and the thought there is that if you do come into the strike zone, they can do some damage. So they didn't do a ton of damage because they didn't need to. Their strategy that paid off was standing in the batter's box and holding a bat and feeling the breeze blowing all over the place. And watching the airplanes fly. They just had to stand there, and they scored some runs. If Cleveland gets anything from the middle of their order, this is probably a game, right? So they even had some chances late. So, yeah, I think there will be some very competitive games here moving forward. Felt like a lot went the Yankees' way, and a lot didn't go Cleveland's way. Look at the pitchers you used versus who, the Yankees used Rodon, and then they used their two best relievers. I don't know where Hill ranks in their hierarchy, but they used Holmes and they used Weaver. And you used Walters and Avila and Cantillo. That's
of course,
a loss.
If this were the other way around, we'd all be saying, "Who cares? You took the game." We're not saying that that's somehow a negative against New York. It's just when you are on the losing side of this, what do you take away? What positive do you take away so you don't feel like the rest of this series is now blown because you drew the short straw in Game 1? And I think in this case, not only do you make Weaver come out and pitch the extra outs in the 8th inning, but what do we talk about this whole Detroit series? By the time you get to the end of the series, you want to feel very comfortable against whoever you're facing because you've seen them a ton. I'm not going to say that because you see Weaver in Game 1 that's somehow going to make you have a better at-bat in Game 6 or 7. But it does somehow work, and sometimes it makes guys feel more comfortable. I'm relieved that not only did they make it a game at the end, but they made New York use their best pitchers in this situation, because a game like this where they're up 4-0, and as you said, they didn't really have to do a ton to get into that position, at least you are forcing them to make winning moves at the tail end of that ball game, so you're taking at least something away from them, despite the fact that you dropped the game, the most important thing.
I think it's pretty important Cleveland gets Game 2.
Agree.
But I also think it's hard to forecast a series like this, because all we want to do, we can look at pitching matchups, and I can say, okay, it's probably Boyd in Game 3, and then I think Gavin Williams in Game 4, and then maybe Cobb in Game 5 if he's healthy, and
Ben Lively.
That seems a little shaky, right? That's a little shaky, and at the same time, it's okay, but you have to think about you're going to be facing right-handers. They're throwing 3 right-handers in a row at you. Can you get some key hits from Manzardo? Can you get some key hits from Josh Naylor? Those, to me, are the two guys. Obviously, Jose Ramirez, too, but the middle of the order's got to do something. It's been Kwan at the top and Rocchio at the bottom, and that's it. They've got to get production in the middle of the order. And right now, I know Jose hit a couple balls really well, but he and Naylor have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, this is why when we talk about that move for Cantillo, or the thing that really confused me is why Manzardo for Noel, knowing you then would have to replace Manzardo with Schneemann, and then when you want to use Brennan later, it just feels like you used an extra bench piece that you didn't need to use when you could have just easily made the swap Brennan in that situation. Maybe there's something about the matchup or just a strategic pinch hit with guys on base that you like better with Brennan. And this goes beyond just that it didn't work out. I'm talking just from a strategy standpoint. I didn't agree with that one either. That one just felt odd. But beyond all of that, you still came up with Jose as the tying run coming to the plate.
Right.
And he didn't come through. I mean, I know he hit 2 screamers earlier in the game, but he still, in this situation, did not come through. Naylor's at-bat in the 9th inning was brutal. I mean, what are you doing? You have Lane Thomas take 5 balls
Pressing.
For a walk.
That's what he's doing.
5 balls for a walk, and then he's immediately swinging out of his shoes, just falling into the trap of what the pitcher wants to do to him. And I'm not saying anything he doesn't believe himself. I'm sure he's sitting in there staring himself in the mirror. What the hell am I doing? And he has to be better for the rest of this series to go Cleveland's way.
Yeah. So I don't know what'll happen. I know what the pitching matchups are, but it's boils down to just, can key guys capitalize on, you'd rather have Naylor facing a right-handed pitcher, and he's going to get plenty of those opportunities. I don't know. I also wonder with lefty hitters in this stadium, do you see that short porch and you're just like, all it would take It's just one little poke. Can you fall in love with that? Does it feel like it's too easy, too inviting? Probably not when Garrett Cole's on the mound.
Probably not. I mean, for Brian Rocchio, it didn't matter. Switch him around to the right side, and he's still going to pull one over that fence. We're just seeing the transformation of of the guy that has drawn the ire of so many fans throughout the season. Now looks like an all-star shortstop.
Hey, hit the random player sounder.
And now it's time for the random Cleveland used to play here guy of the day.
Rocchio told me before Game 1 the player he idolized when he was growing up in Venezuela was Carlos Gonzalez. He said it's from Maracaibo, Venezuela. And he got to meet him when Gonzalez spent 2 months with the Indians. What year was that? 2019?
Yes?
Must have met him in spring training. I think I blocked that out of my mind.
Yes.
He was so bad
I think
at that point.
That sounds
It
right.
was when he hit cleanup one day and got DFA'd the next.
Oh, lives on in infamy on this show. Rocchio, we talked about it meaning a lot confidence-wise. This is a cat that's definitely playing with a lot of confidence. So much so that he's now bending the rules to his whim. Like he now forces an extra base by seeing the pitcher get in the way. Is he doing this on purpose? I don't know, but he sees Hill in the way and says, I guess I want second base. It's mine. So get out of my way, and then I'm going to run into you, and I'm going to get second base. I mean, what a heady play from a young player.
It really was. Yeah. And he's just exuding confidence. Like, you can see it when you watch his every move. The home run, it was funny. I think the fan threw it back onto the field in left field before Rocchio even got to first base. I think he savored watching that go. But, yeah, I mean, you're getting that production, so you've got him and Kwon back-to-back, and it's setting up opportunities. And, again, they need the middle of the order to deliver, and it hasn't happened.
All that said, it still came down to Austin Hedges at the plate.
Always does.
When he comes into the game, you just know. He pinch hit Austin Hedges. This is a postseason where Austin Hedges strategically pinch hit for somebody else.
Yeah. That's where Bo Naylor's at.
Now, having said that, not only offensively, but now defensively, should he have blocked every single one of those? I don't know. I'm not a catcher. Never was. I certainly in that position would have not. There would have been some that I also missed that he blocked. Saying all of that, does this team decide we're not getting anything offensively from Bo right now? And maybe it impacted his defense. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a bit of randomness that led to all the wild pitches. I mean, Austin Hedges had a wild pitch that he allowed too. But does the team say, we're not getting anything offensively. We trust Austin Hedges, his pitch calling, his throwing, his blocking, his everything behind the plate. If we're not going to get, if the two are comparable offensively, we're going to take Austin Hedges.
Well, it's
Could that
weird. I would have thought Hedges would have started game 1 and Bo would have started game 2 just with the lefty-righty on the mound, but that didn't happen, so I'll be curious to see who starts game 2. I don't know. I know they've liked Bo defensively. Even Hedges was talking him up this week, but I mean, you're getting nothing, and it's tough. It's nice having Rocchio there, but you have to have some sort of threat or someone functioning 2 through 8, and you're not gonna. I think the thing that makes it hard is that you can pinch hit for the catcher once, but then the other guy's hitting, and you don't want that either. So then you have to wait to pinch hit for Bo Naylor until it's late enough in the game that you're not worried about Hedges coming up with the game on the line. So it really hamstrings you. I I don't know the best strategy to move forward here, but Bo's got to be better than this. What happened to that guy we saw the last 6 weeks of 2023?
I've been asking that question a lot. How, not even that he has to continue at that pace, but even having a brief stretch like that should prove that it's somewhat in there, that the power's in there, that he's capable of being a league average bat offensively. And I'm not saying because he has a rough day defensively in New York, this somehow makes him a bad defensive player. We save that for Keith Olbermann, who watches one game, who then determines, this guy sucks. Oscar Mercado, that's a deep cut. if you recognize that one, that you've been listening to this show for a long time. But there are still, even good players can get into a rut where you don't want the yips to form because of the situation, because of Yankee Stadium, because of all these runs. Like, you don't want to beat down a young player that's going through it. And you trust Austin Hedges. You know he's going to call a great game. You know the pitchers love working with the guy. I can't believe I'm out here championing the need to get Austin Hedges in the starting lineup, but if you know that you trust that guy defensively, and they're both zeros offensively, I mean, it might be an easy call right now.
Yeah, well, imagine if David Fry could catch.
Yeah.
If he could catch, you could have him, Manzardo, and Naylor in the same lineup if you wanted.
Imagine if Jose could catch.
You probably could.
I don't. I wouldn't put anything past him. Yeah, Game 2, Garrett Cole. You need to get it, and it feels like an extreme uphill battle. And it does feel like it's a must-win game in some ways. If you get it, you throw everything out that happened in Game 1, but that's a big if.
Yeah, it's just, that's so much momentum if you win Game 2. Going back home for 3. Raucous Progressive Field. I think a 5 p.m. start for Game 3. It's so weird.
We actually want more shadows. All the shadows. If there are shadows to be found, we want them. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. If you want more content, if you want to join the Discord, how do they get there, Zach? By destroying the kitchen? Like, what is happening in there?
I don't know. Get to the Discord and get there quickly.
Patreon.com/Salbia's We'll have at least one of our shows coming up this week. We'll be over there at Patreon, so go join
Aren't
the
you getting
Patreon.
that New York ambiance here?
I can almost smell it, coming through. Thank you for being here. We knew it was going to be brief. Thank you, Zach, for making it work. Thank you for being here, everybody. And if you're listening on YouTube, you want the audio-only version, they're out there, Spotify, Apple Podcast. If you're listening to those and you want the video version to see how Zach survives New York, go over to YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, do all those things. Thanks for being here, everybody. It's been a fun postseason ride. We're picking up more people along the way, and thanks for being here. We do appreciate it. Any parting words?
I think I see a rat.
Better than a dugout snake? Did you see that?
No?
Go check out Twitter.